For hundreds of years, ice mummies have been pulled from or fallen out of permafrost deposits across the Arctic and subarctic. You may be familiar with the impressive mammoth mummies of Siberia, but several decades have revealed a distressingly growing list of Ice Age animals which have helped to flesh out the world of Pleistocene Eurasia more than any bone could ever do. We've seen bears, wolf heads, cave lion cubs, and woolly rhino and elephant calves, but a holy grail has finally been found, an animal from the Pleistocene for which there are no known modern analogues, a saber-toothed cat of sorts. Let's take a gander at the frozen mummy of a Homotherium cub, quite possibly one of the most important Ice Age paleontological discoveries ever made. Natural mummies are largely considered a type of fossil. Not quite the same, of course, because nothing is petrified, fossilized, or otherwise replaced by minerals. However, it is lumped together with fossils because it usually happens to extinct animals and there is some form of preservation through deep time. One of the many categories of mummy is ice mummies. Ice mummies are any organic material from prehistoric times that becomes preserved through dry, cold climates to the present day. Western scientists have known of these things for well over a century, with some of the first described finds being that of woolly mammoths and extinct bison, all the way back in the late 1700s. Almost all of these Ice Age mummies come from Siberia, though some have been found in Alaska and Canada. This is due to these regions being some of the last refuges for large deposits of ice and permafrost, which is the stuff that preserves these mummies the best. As the climate warms ever dangerously, more and more ice melts and reveals these ancient bodies, stuffed with information and potentially deadly viruses and diseases we no longer have an immunity to fight. The majority of the animals around during the last glacial maximum, or Ice Age, are the same animals that are with us today. Deer, elk, moose, wolves, lynx, bears, bison, muskox, reindeer, weasels, badgers, pikas, wolverines, hares, and more. However, there were also megafauna around at the time: rhinos, elephants, lions, cave bears, and giant moose. As of now, the majority of fauna from Ice Age Siberia are known from mummified remains. However, a few still remain elusive. Neanderthals, cave bears, camels, elasmotheres, giant elk, and cave hyenas have not yet been found. Very few of any of these quaternary extinction species have absolutely no analogues with us today. We have rhinos, elephants, and deer out the wazoo. However, some were members of groups that no longer exist and lived in ecological niches that no longer exist. This may be said of the Neanderthals, elasmotheres, and a peculiar type of saber-toothed cat that may well have been the most successful single genus of cat to ever live, outside of Panthera, of course. Homotherium, or the scimitar-toothed cat. The critter that comes to mind when you think of saber-toothed cat is obviously going to be Smilodon. It's large, bear-like, carries some of the largest fangs of any animal to ever live, is North American, and an LA native. However, it was not the first of the saber-toothed cats to be discovered and was also relatively short-lived, all things considered. About the same height, but lighter in build, was Homotherium, a genus of cat from a lineage with no living descendants that thrived across North America, Eurasia, Africa, and possibly South America from 4 million years ago to 12,000 years ago, producing 4 valid species. It didn't have the obnoxiously large sabers of Smilodon, but the canines of Homotherium were still larger than any living cat. As such, it was evolutionarily and ecologically unlike anything alive today. Remember, there were lions and leopards throughout Eurasia at the same time. So, finding an Ice Age mummy of such an animal would be tantamount to a holy grail, with the potential to teach us about an entire felid lineage our ancestors had the misfortune to deal with. I've edged you enough with suspense. Just such a holy grail has finally been found. All the way back in 2020, the front half of a frozen carcass of a cub of a large felid was discovered melting out of a deposit of ice along the Bajarica River, located in Abyysky Ulus of the Republic of Sakha or Yakutia, Siberia, Russia. The same locality has also released mammoth bones over the years, though they tend to come out of the sediments rather than the ice. Once this specimen was field prepared, protected, and brought back to the Borisyak Paleontological Institute at the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow, a team of Russian scientists got to work measuring, photographing, CT scanning, and describing the specimen. With all of their data collected, this is the rundown. The skeleton was perfectly preserved from the head to the 12th vertebra, with all of the ribs for each of those vertebrae, plus the skull and both arms and shoulders. It was the anatomy of the skull seen through CT scans that told the authors that this specimen belongs to the Homotherium genus. Aside from the skeleton, some of the internal organs, plus most of the skin and fur, are preserved intact across the whole specimen. Based on the size of the teeth, the researchers have estimated the individual to have been within the 3-week-old size class of modern lions. As you can see, the cub is dark brown in color. Unfortunately, the paper does not delve much into the color of the fur. It may be that this cub really was exactly this color, or something close to it, when it died. However, it is also possible that the color has degraded over time, as many ice mummies have been pulled from the permafrost with a similar cinnamony color, and it's unlikely they all had the exact same colors and patterns. The most interesting part of this mummy is the fact that it doesn't really say many new things that weren't already known. Not at all downplaying the work done on the specimen, but the authors note that this mummy confirms analyses which had been conducted on just bone specimens of Homotherium in previous years. As the authors state, the external appearance of extinct cats has been a controversial discussion for a long time. Bones were all anyone had to go off of, plus the living big cats, of course. All of this is in proportion. It's nowhere near as difficult to reconstruct an extinct cat as it is to do the same with a non-avian dinosaur, but I digress. Plenty of studies have been done on trying to reconstruct the musculature of Homotherium based on bones and modern comparisons, and this cub proves those studies to be spot on. This means that lots of work on just bones are more likely to be accurate than inaccurate. The researchers compared the Homotherium cub to a cub of the modern African lion, showing that even at a tentative 3 weeks of age, Homotherium sported the traits that made the adults so distinct from all contemporary or modern big cats. They were lanky, with legs 18 to 23% longer than lions, short in the torso, with a body length 10% less than lions, with massive neck muscles twice the thickness of lions, and longer neck vertebrae. The cub also shows these critters had ovular foot pads. The presence of this cub in Siberia, and with the carbon dating of it to around 31,000 years ago, makes it one of the most recent specimens ever found. The Eurasian species of Homotherium, Homotherium latidens, was thought to have gone extinct around the Middle Pleistocene, though a single mandible was found from late Pleistocene North Sea deposits. Genetic tests of this jaw, with data from a bunch of other specimens, found it to be more closely related to the North American species, Homotherium serum, so this outlier may just be a migration of the North American species into Eurasia, rather than evidence of late surviving Eurasian species. The cub proves the Eurasian species continued until the late Pleistocene, which could mean that jaw really did belong to the Eurasian species. What many have been quick to point out in the photographs, but that has yet to be fully described in the literature, is that it almost seems like even at the cub stage, this population of Homotherium latidens had long, lightly colored fur on the chin. The chin itself was also more robust in bone and muscle than lions, no doubt to help house the scimitar teeth. With all of the specimens described, paleoartists have gone nuts reconstructing the cub as well as what an adult may have looked like. Some have speculatively extrapolated the blondish-colored spot of long hair on the chin into a full-on beard in the adult. Usually lion cubs have more spotting and then lose it as they age, so some paleoartists have flipped that in Homotherium, since the cub seems to be patternless. Not much is said of the belly fur, though many artists have speculated a lightly colored belly, which is not unusual for cats. One of the most creative paleoartists working today, Hodari Nundu, has gone on a tear, producing all sorts of speculations on the outer appearance. He has reconstructed an adult with a huge bumpy blonde beard, reasoned that an ancient cat-like human-made figurine is more likely to represent Homotherium than any other extinct big cat, and even did some creative speculation on behavior, with two rival males displaying their long blade-shaped blonde beards. I like his ideas. That's pretty much it with regard to this specimen. It's amazing for what it can tell us of an entirely extinct lineage of cats that thrived for millions of years before going out with the ice. More research will likely be forthcoming on this specimen as more is revealed. I'm still keeping my eyes out for an elasmothere or Neanderthal. For more interesting stories about nature, the history of life, or what goes bump in the night, subscribe, like this video, drop a comment in the comment section below, and hit the bell icon to stay in the know with everything Edge. Thanks for watching.